A group of scientists made a scientific experiment with chickens.
The super chickens who produced more eggs were put in a group, and the ordinary chickens were put in another group to see which group produced more eggs.
As the super chickens were over competitive, they started killing each other.
The ordinary chickens weren't so competitive and they were able to cooperate with each other.
In the end of the experiment, the ordinary chickens were the ones who produced more eggs.
In conclusion, we realized that the cooperative chickens did best because they were cooperating, and the super chickens, because they were competing against each other, they didn't come through as the best chickens.
It is better to cooperate to achieve results than to be better on your own.
People push and shove to get those 100% scores, but they usually leave a few dead chickens along the path. Now, famous companies or organizations, McKinsey, the UN, Goldman Sachs, are for sure looking for students who have 100% scores. But they want you to have communication skills and empathy skills too. And guess what? You don't find those skills accidentally along the way. You find them by doing all those things that you don't easily find time to do when you're studying from dawn till midnight. So how can we fix this? We have to find ways to encourage schools, society at large, and organizations to change the emphasis, to open their doors differently. And we must encourage you, the young people, to have the courage to take the time to discover yourselves, to define your likes and dislikes, and to forge a path towards a true mix of skills and passion in your lives. And that's what I'm here to do, here on this earth, not just here in this webinar. I hope you'll have a lot of questions to see how we can help each other. Okay, so did you hear me asking you what kind of a chicken you want to be?
No.
Okay, so that's the important question to keep in your head. Are you going to be a super chicken that kills people to get your success? Or are you going to be an ordinary chicken that works nicely with the others too, to find your path and to find your passion? So let's take a little moment, and I want to ask you some questions. So first of all, I'm sure you've been talking about this already with Tanya, but I'd like to hear what you say. What is your definition of success? How do you guys define success? Can somebody give me an idea, something that you feel strongly about?
Achieving your dreams.
Could you hear that?
No.
Achieving your dreams.
Okay, achieving your dreams. What else?
Go on.
Be happy.
Being happy.
Happy, okay. Well, okay. Doesn't matter. Let's think about it from a different angle. How would your parents or your school teacher define success?
How would that be?
Getting good grades.
Getting good grades.
Okay.
Working hard.
Mm-hmm.
What else? Anything else?
Anything else? How old are you guys? Who's the youngest and who's the oldest?
How old are you? 15, 16? Is there any 17? No, so 15 and 16.
Okay. So probably your parents are not yet talking about getting into a good university. They just want you to do well in high school, right? That's a different kind of pressure again, right? So already we see that your success, your definition of success, is probably not the same as your parents' definition of success. Maybe sometimes the two come together, and maybe sometimes they're going down completely separate paths. So, you know, that's something that there's a bridge to be built between the two. Somehow you need to figure out what's important for me, what's important for the other people around me, and how do I, how do I make that bridge? How do I fit in to what everybody wants, and how do I take care of my needs? Now, I like to think of one of the ways we can define success as being about being able to be a good leader. Now, when I say good leader, I don't mean the boss of a company or the captain of a team. What I mean is somebody who can give good examples, somebody who can inspire and motivate others to do important or necessary things. So I want to talk to you a little bit about some of the qualities that I believe are necessary to achieve the status of leadership. But just before I do that, I want to check, are you understanding me and are you hearing me well?
Yeah.
Yeah? Good. Okay. So let's talk a little bit about your future as leaders. And maybe we can even go a little further and talk about your future as global leaders. Now, once again, this does not mean that you're going to be president of the United Nations, but it means that you're probably looking for a future that is not just in Tumar. It's probably, in the rest of your country, or looking outside, studying, living, working outside, or with people from outside. And in this sense, I'm talking about global, okay? The dictionary definition of leadership or a leader is the action of leading a group of people or an organization, or the ability to do this. Now, at this point in your life, we're really talking more about developing this ability, increasing your capacity, increasing your potential and your chances. And to do this means a long period of learning and developing, growing and changing. Some of you probably aren't yet as tall as you're going to be. Some of you don't yet have all your brain developed as much as you will do. There's a long, long, long path to go before you are the complete and wonderful adults that you're going to be. So going from being a young person with few responsibilities to taking hold of your role as an adult with a vision, with a goal, with a broad horizon is really what you're doing. And if you're here in this classroom in Tumar and talking to me, it's probably because you're aiming quite high. So, aiming high is an admirable thing, okay? There's plenty of good things to say about people who are aiming high in their lives. And there are so many things that you need to learn and acquire and develop before you can be considered a leader. Because, that's what we're really looking at. You may consider studying overseas. You may consider going and working in another country, or indeed working in your own country, but with people from other countries. And so I guess you're hoping to know and understand at least part of the rest of the world. And that should lead to the result of you becoming a better person with a richer future ahead of you. Now, to do this, you're going to have to work. But more importantly, you're going to have to be smart. So many students, I see them every day in my work as a career coach. They go overseas to study or learn a foreign language. And of this many students, so few get the kind of international life that they thought they wanted. Now, why is that? It's because they don't have the ability, or sometimes the desire, to prepare and behave properly along the way. It's not good enough just to study a language or just to go and study overseas. If you don't learn to behave like the best competitors in your life, then you won't succeed in working alongside the brightest people. So I want to share with you here the start, and I'm underlining the start of a list of the qualities you'll need to be here. You'll need to get. Now, whether you want your career to be in Rio, or whether you want your career in London, whether your dream is marketing or audit, whether you're just in high school or whether you're a little bit older, there's so much to learn and a lot to regret if you don't bother. Okay, now just to give you a little bit of background, I've been coaching and supporting students from all over the world, helping them in their quest for their dream jobs for over 5 years. And incredibly, in that time, I've touched the lives of over 1,000 young people directly, as well as many more than that indirectly. Now, before I started coaching, I was a headhunter. Does anyone know what a headhunter is?
You know?
Okay. Well, in the jungle, a headhunter is somebody who, hunts people down and then cuts their heads off and kills them. But that's not what I did. I was working to help companies to find and identify great future managers and directors and leaders and persuade them to come to join the company. So I've been thinking about jobs and talent and how people get better for an awfully long time. So let's have a look at these qualities. So one of the first things you need, I believe, is lifelong curiosity. Okay, now what do I mean by this? First of all, this may or it may not be something your parents taught you. Yeah, constantly to be learning and exploring and asking questions and stretching yourself. And you know what? Whether your parents taught this habit to you or not, there's always room for more. So here are a couple of ways that you can build this curiosity. First of all, read widely and follow your interests. Whenever you come across something you find interesting, whether it's on the internet or in a museum or told by a friend, drop everything else and study it. Now, of course, this doesn't mean that you should be dropping your current studies, but it does mean letting yourself be interested in a variety of things and following that interest with passion. That feeling of being interested can act as a sort of neurological signal, which will direct you towards fruitful areas of inquiry. And be inspired by the minds of others. You've got a fantastic teacher, Tanya. Her mind is amazing. She's one of the most generous and inspired people I've ever met. And she's there for you. And I really hope you understand just how precious and great that is. Now, there are other people who have pretty amazing minds. There was this guy you probably heard of, Leonardo da Vinci. Yeah? He was an amazing guy, and he was always looking for more things to do. I found a list that he wrote, a list of the tasks he had to do. And I'm going to read you some of the tasks. The first one was calculate the measurement of Milano and its suburbs.
Wow.
The second one was find a book that describes Milano and its churches, which I will be able to find at the stationer's shop on the way to Cordusio. Okay? Number 3, discover the measurement of the Corte Vecchio. It's a courtyard in the Duke's Palace. Number 4, get the master of arithmetic to show you how to square a triangle.
Yeah.
Number 5, ask Benedetto Portinari how people skate on ice in Flanders. Number 6 or 7, whatever we are, draw Milano. Number 7, examine the crossbow, that's the, arco, of Maestro Gianetto. And there are more. I'm not going to bore you with them all. Oh no, the last one's great. Ask about the measurement of the sun. Now, this guy was measuring Milan. Not only was it amazing because of the tasks, but did you notice how many times his task was talking about asking someone else, consulting with others, finding out more through other people? Do you have a list? Probably not quite as ambitious as that, but do you have a list of the things you want to do? And could you make that list a little more ambitious?
So, do you have a list or not? No. Could you create a list that interests you about whatever you have an interest on? Yeah?
Let's talk about another requirement for being a great leader, for being successful. And that is what I think of as self-awareness. Okay, knowing yourself. This is something that is often missing in a traditional upbringing. Because so often parents and society and teachers expect a very classical approach, which doesn't necessarily leave much room for self-questioning or selfish reflection. But if you want to get the most out of yourself and your life and your career, then I can strongly recommend that you try to fix objectives that make you happy, as well as being something that you're good at. If you're lucky enough to be given space to get to know yourself, then congratulations. You'll perhaps have more certainty than some. But it's never a bad idea to think more and to explore more about what you are really about. So what can you do to become more self-aware? You can start by asking yourself some really deep and challenging questions. You may be used to doing this, but it might be totally new territory. Either way, these questions need to be asked. Now, I'm not going to ask you to give answers to these questions. These questions are for you. And if you'd like me to send the list later to Tanya, she can pass it on to you. But I'm going to read them, and I'm going to get you just to think about them quickly in your head for yourself. Don't take too long to answer them. Usually the first answer to these questions is the right one. And there's never a right or a wrong answer. It's not a test. It's a reflection. So, first question, what am I good at? The second question is, what am I not so good at? Third question, what am I really bad at? What do I really suck at doing? Fourth question, what makes me tired? Fifth question, what's the most important thing in my life? Number 6, who are the most important people in my life? How much sleep do I need? What stresses me out? And what relaxes me? Here we're back to your big question, what's my definition of success? What type of worker or learner am I? How do I want others to see me? What makes me sad? What makes me happy? What makes me angry? What type of person do I want to be? And what type of friend do I want to be? What do I think about myself? And what things do I value in life? And what makes me afraid? So, a long list. Some easy, some not so easy. Some probably have long answers, some probably have short answers. You might then ask, well, what do I do with my answers? I write them down, and then what? So, I would say, trying to do more of the things that make you happy and fewer of those that make you sad or angry. And if you can't change things immediately, then you can try to work towards this change. Now, how do you work towards it? There are several methods you can use. Read more about whatever you're trying to change wherever you can. Listen to other people. Listen to their point of view. Keep a journal. Ask yourself why you are feeling this way or that way. And talk and talk and talk and explore what others think and why. Now, how are you feeling? You might be a bit scared, as asking yourself questions like this can be frightening. Being honest with yourself could make you very uncomfortable. It made me uncomfortable in the past, that's for sure. And I would pretty much guess that Tanya would say the same. Honesty is often much less easy than lying to yourself. But remember that whatever path you choose, it's not always easy to change dramatically. So the more you can reflect and know yourself honestly, the more likely you are to be able to choose to do something you truly love. And in this way, derive the ability to be a leader. Now, by the way, you can do both of these things, this curiosity and this self-knowledge, self-awareness, without being in school, without leaving your country, without leaving your town, without any permission from parents or teachers. You can also do it without any money or any special equipment. So don't waste time. Get on with it and you won't regret it. Next, I really strongly believe that you need to develop a sensitivity to cultural diversity. I know you've done work on this in your school with Tanya. I want to tell you a little story, another story. A few months ago, I was flying on a plane from my home city here in Toulouse in France to the south of Spain. And I had been planning to catch up on some sleep in the flight, as actually the night before I'd been listening to the UK election results until much too late. But instead of sleeping, I found that I was being kept awake by a group of 20 or so French guys who were all dressed up in typical French clothes, stripy t-shirts and berets, and they were all going off to celebrate one of them getting married. So they were going to have a big, exciting party, going to the beach where they were probably going to shout and drink beer and get sunburned and do all kinds of stupid things while saying goodbye to the life of the solitary young man. Now, I was looking at these guys and I was thinking, you know, I could be angry. They're making a lot of noise. They're really not behaving nicely. They weren't rude. They were just noisy. And they were smiling and having fun. So what I was thinking was that these guys were not blending. They were dressed up in their national costume and they were going to another country. And they were going to go to that other country and drink too much and sleep not enough and impose their way of doing things on their hosts. And I thought that was really rather a sad thing to do in so many ways. And it gives this idea of just using the country or the other place, the other way of doing things. And I guess what I'm trying to say here is, when you decide to go and live and study in another place, you will need to take some decisions about the culture and the fact that you will be a foreigner. And you'll need to think about that even before you leave. Because just like those guys in the plane with their beret, once you've taken action, it's too late to change. Okay, now, I told you that I coach a lot of students, and most of them are Chinese. And many of these Chinese students come to the UK or to France because they want to study in a good university. And they arrive in their university and they find that 90% of their classmates are Chinese. And they live in houses with Chinese roommates. They eat Chinese food together. They watch Chinese movies and TV, and they do their study, and then they go home. And they tell everyone, oh, I speak fluent English, and I had a year living in the UK. Except that, you know what? Did they really get an experience of living in the UK? They didn't. I would argue that they didn't get much at all. They were being Chinese in another country. Now, I don't know where Portuguese students typically go overseas to study, but I wonder how good the typical Portuguese student is at being open and mixing with the new culture. I hope better than the Chinese. Anyway, one of the things that we know is that universities and companies that employ students and graduates are not impressed just because you visited a country. They don't think it's impressive just to say, I've traveled to France and Spain and Italy. Traveling is something that most people can do these days. And it's not enough just to say, you know, I've been to this country, I've been to that country, check, check, check. That doesn't work. But I think what is important is to consider traveling in a different way. Think about how you travel. Travel in small groups. You don't need to go far. Small groups are even better on your own. If you're lucky enough to have rich parents who like to take you to 5-star resorts, then enjoy that, but don't see it as travel. Getting to know the way other people behave usually happens when you meet them and talk to them. And you won't find people who will share their way of thinking in a 5-star resort. But if you go to a coffee shop or a restaurant alone, and you sit down and you smile and you say hello to people, you'll almost certainly end up in conversation with them. If you go to that same coffee shop or that same restaurant with a group of 3 friends, you'll have a nice time with your friends, but you won't start any new conversations. So, why is this important? Because it's important that you find an interest in other people and understanding how they behave. So, how interested are you in other people and how they behave?
They haven't really thought about this before. But does it make sense, what Claire is saying? Have you traveled a lot or just a bit? Yeah. So it still hasn't been a challenge for you.
Okay. Well, what I can say for sure is that even in your relatively small city, you have people there from other places.
Mm-hmm.
And you can probably learn a lot about them by observing, by talking, by generally opening yourself up to the possibility that these people see the world in a different way from the way you see it. And the more different ways of seeing the world you can understand, the more likely you are to be a great and empathic and adaptable person and bring those qualities to your future life and success. Okay, so that's something more to think about. Now, finally, well, not quite finally, but we're getting there. Don't worry, we're almost done. There's another thing that I believe is incredibly important. And I know that, again, Tanya has this in tons and megatons. And that is humility and honesty. Okay, you spend your school years trying to get to the top of the class. Maybe you win prizes or scholarships that link that top position to praise or even money. Now, you know, how amazing is that, right? But it doesn't easily make you humble, right? We tell you, be the top, be the best, get the best grades. And then we ask you to be humble. That's kind of tough. And then we're saying, be humble, be kind, be kind. So it's important to understand that winning, being the best person you can be, is not the same thing as being arrogant. And it's wise to develop as much humility as you can, because your fellow humans like it. Okay, we don't tend to like arrogant people. Universities like humble people and employers humble people. People with ambitions, people with dreams, but people who are humble. Okay, now I'm not going to say as much about humility as I can, because I think this is a lot to think about already. But let me summarize a few things that humble people usually have in common. So first of all, they get to situations, they understand what's going on in a group or what, you know, what people are saying and what that really means. They have emotional intelligence and they can decode what's going on. They're looking outward, they're looking at others as they try to understand. Now, as they look at others, they're working on their relationship. They maintain relationship. And they're much more likely to help their friends than the people who are stuck in their pride and their self and so on. Another thing they do is when there's a tough decision to take, they deal with that decision bravely. They don't put their needs first, they don't look after number one, they look after others first. Okay? And they make their decisions based on the good of everybody, not just the good of themselves. They listen. How often do you find yourself in a conversation with somebody who is obviously just wanting to speak, rather than truly listening to you? That person is putting his or her own interests first, believing that what they have to say is more valuable than your words. But humble people will take time to listen before reflecting back. Why? Because they're basically eager to understand and to learn, rather than to dominate and convince by force. They love to understand because they're curious. We're back to the curious thing. Okay? Humble people are lifetime learners. They realize that they don't know everything. I'm 50 years old and I know nowhere near enough to be a great person. I'm always learning, always trying to understand more. Humble people are not afraid to speak their minds. They're good listeners, but if they believe in something, if they think something is right or wrong, or they need to convince, then they will say so. They have confidence and they don't mind being wrong. They're also good at listening to other viewpoints and being gracious about it. Humble people are also grateful and they're happy to express that. They're able to say thank you, to take the time to say thank you, even to the most poor and simple servant or to the very most rich and powerful person. They're the ones who know the names of the children, of the driver, the cleaning lady, and all those people, as well as the other important people. So, you know, you think about which kind of person you're going to be. Will you be the one who looks up here, or will you be sharing with the others? Humble people understand abundance. They understand that the chickens can live together or they can kill each other to succeed. And they understand that one person's win does not equal another person's loss. There's a lot of opportunity to be shared, and the key to finding that is persistent collaboration and community. Humble people accept feedback. They understand that they are needing to improve, and they look for constructive criticism. This is something that you can start to do right now, even if you're not already doing so. Humble people take responsibility. And they take responsibility in a humble way. The poor leader takes credit for the team when things go well, and blames things on the team when they go less well. The great and humble never blames anyone, but takes responsibility for all. Humble people also know how to ask for help. They don't mind not having all the answers. No one has all the answers. So they understand what they do and don't, and they ask where they need to fill the gaps. Humble people work. You guys are young. You're probably very busy in school and coming to English class. And And I would encourage you to find a way to already start to discover the value of money. Money is not everything, but we all need it. And you can all find ways, all kinds of ways to start earning your own money just by thinking creatively. I know you've raised money and all kinds of resources in Tanya's school, but think also of what you can do. If you're 14, 15, what can you do? Maybe you can work in your family's business. Maybe you can look after some smaller children and get some small pay for that. Maybe you can set up a business teaching others English or other skills, like translation or trading, and sell your services, or make cakes, make chocolate and sell it. All you do now, the work that you do, will be a credit in the future to your university or your work, and it will teach you so much about how hard it is to gain success. You are in education. You are learning every day. Humility is founded on the idea of willingness to learn and learn. And these are things that we should all be seeking, regardless of age, or background, culture, and so on. So ask yourself, what do you do with this stuff? A final thing, humble people see failure as an opportunity to learn and to improve. I can tell you that I have fallen down and failed so many times I've lost count. I wasn't always nice to my parents, definitely not to my sister. I was not the best wife to my now ex-husband. I've often shouted at my own children. But I've always seen and reflected and looked for better ways and focused on what I can do and moved onwards and upwards. And I guess I would like to tell you that you can and should do the same. However bad the mistake you make, there's always a way to learn from it and move forwards. Now, I've talked for a very, very long time, so now it's your turn. What kind of questions do you have? What kinds of ideas? Do you agree with what I've been telling you? Or do you think it was all a load of rubbish? Please tell me. Please take your time now to share what you would like to say or to ask.
So what feedback can you give Claire about what she's shared with you? Can you come here, please? So she can hear you. Okay, so say what you're saying and I'll repeat. So, Paula, right? Anna. Okay, Anna says that everything you said is true and important. Anything else? Do you see yourselves starting to answer those? I'll ask Claire to send a list of questions because some of you didn't have time to write them down. Do you see yourselves exploring that about yourselves? Probably. Remember at the beginning of the year we spoke about the fact that emotional intelligence is more important than IQ? So that's all about what Claire's been saying, right? She works with achievers, people who want to be successful. And the main thing is that emotional intelligence. Anything that Claire said that was surprising to you, that made you think? Do you think the same way as before? No. So there are a few things that Claire brought to you that will make you see things in a different way. What can you think of, right from the top of your mind?
The chicken experience.
The chicken experience.
It was surprising.
Was surprising. Had you ever realized that if too many want to win all at the same time over each other, it doesn't work? But schools are basically supposed to be the chicken, the top achievers are the ones who are supposed to be at school, getting better and better, right? Would you be able to tell this story to your colleagues at school about the chickens?
One thing I would like to remind all of you is that I've talked about many, many, many things this evening. So many that it's really too much in many ways. If you just take one or two of the things and start to think about them and work on them, then already you will be transforming yourself. You can't do it all at once, so just start with what gave you interest and stimulation and motivation, and start from there and see what happens. You will be amazed, because you all have huge power and potential to change yourselves however you want. So I wish you luck with it.
And so you're going to be with us again, Claire.
You never know. If you're very, very nice to me and you ask me nicely.
If you write a nice
I'd love to come back. I'd love to come back and hear from each of you about how you've been doing with some of the things and the changes you've made. That would be a wonderful thing to do.
Great. Okay.
Good. Well, thank you so much for having me. It's been a real pleasure.
Do you have anything to say? Thank you. Okay. Thank you. Thank you for being with us for an hour. Thank you. That was great.
Good. Bom trabalho.
Obrigada.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
See you again. Thank you. Bye-bye. Bye. Thank you. Bye-bye.